Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Dark Matter Season 1 Episode 2. It's called Trip of a Lifetime. So spoilers for the episode. This is, this was kind of like a make or break episode in that I didn't feel super confident about the show after episode 1. I had kind of mixed feelings on it, mainly just because, while I like the overall concept of a show about people like switching places in different universes. But of course, Apple just did this recently. And I think one of the things that frustrated me in episode 1 was trying to wait to get to the point where we were just like, it was treated like a twist in episode 1. So we are kind of waiting just to get to the point where we could finally talk about it. And I was concerned that episode 2 onwards, we might spend time with the other characters in the second universe thinking Jason's crazy and having to deal with that. And I could see that being very frustrating as well. Like, we can't really start doing the really interesting, fun stuff where we're talking about how this works and what it means and exploring maybe the character dynamics of like all the differences in this world and what it says about each version of Jason and all that. And there's a little bit of that in here. But I will say episode 2 does kind of suffer from some of the same problem in that it spends about 2/3 of the episode, and admittedly, it does reach the point about 2/3 through where Jason does finally start to think about what's actually going on. He starts thinking about the fact that we're talking about two different realities, two different universes, and that maybe the person who did this to him was the other Jason, who I'm going to call Doppel Jason, right? So the main Jason we're following is Jason, the other one's Doppel Jason, and I'll probably put Doppel in front of any other versions of other characters that appear, right? Because we get Doppel Daniela this episode, we get Doppel Ryan, who is the Jimmi Simpson character. Once it got to that point, it's a bit late in this episode for me to be that excited about this episode specifically, but it kind of leaves me in a similar place where I'm thinking, oh, maybe it'll be better now. Maybe it'll be better now that they've finally hit that point. And it's not even taken that long, really. It's only 2 episodes. But there was definitely stuff in this episode where I was feeling that kind of like, okay, I get why we're doing this. I understand why it's logical and makes sense that he would think he's crazy for a bit, so he goes to the hospital and gets a brain scan. I understand that we're having to go through this like journey of him getting to the point where he can finally start asking the real questions, because he doesn't realize that he's just switched into a different universe. He's just confused. But there's multiple scenes in this episode where he'll be talking to Doppel Daniela, and she'll be saying, "Who's Charlie?" when he brings up their son, or when he's talking to Doppel Ryan, and Ryan's getting annoyed that he thinks he's messing with him because he's asking weird questions that don't make much sense. And there's a whole scene where he's with the two Doppels. He's with Doppel Daniela and Doppel Ryan, and he basically starts just brainstorming, like, what could this be, right? He starts off as a hypothetical, but it kind of quickly turns into him just talking in the first person. He's like, okay, so you get kidnapped and you wake up and you're supposed to have a wife and son, but they're not there, and the house has changed, and this, and this, and it's like they're pondering different ideas, being crazy, being on some extreme amount of LSD. It doesn't make sense, and they get kind of frustrated with them. But I was frustrated with the show at this point just because I'm like, I know what the premise is. I feel like I'm waiting for the show to get to the point where the characters can be where I'm at as the audience. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely something to be said for some mystery. But I think the problem with these first 2 episodes of Dark Matter is that the audience, especially if you had any idea what the premise was going in, and I didn't even, but certainly by the time like I got halfway through episode 1, I could see, okay, this is what the main thing's going to be about. It feels like we're waiting for the show to catch up to just what the audience already understands quite quickly. That is a little bit frustrating to me, and it leaves me in this weird place where, again, I feel like, oh, it might be fine now, but now that he's actually asking the right questions and we're going forward from here, now we can actually just talk about how this works, and we can talk about ways to go home, and do the people at the company that Doppel Jason came from, do they understand? Do they already suspect that he's a doppelganger from a different universe? There's interesting questions to be asked. And that's not to say, like, everything I'm saying here that sounds kind of negative, it's not even like I think it's slightly made enough. The acting's solid. Like, there's nothing bad about the show, really. I just, like, from a premise standpoint, I just felt like I was wading through, like, tropes and waiting to get to, like, okay, what makes this different from other stories of this type? Up until this point, I'm just sort of wading through. It's kind of like, you know how, like, with superhero movies, we're really sick of origin stories for certain characters? Like, if they do a new Batman movie, we never want to see the Waynes be murdered again and him have to become Batman. We never want to see Uncle Ben die again in a Spider-Man movie, because it feels like when you go and see a movie and, Amazing Spider-Man in 2012, you're just kind of waiting for Uncle Ben to die. You're waiting for him to make the choice to put on the spider suit so we can finally get to what actually makes this a interesting Spider-Man story, if it is an interesting Spider-Man story. I'm kind of feeling the same way about the first couple of episodes of this show, where it's going through all the motions of, like, what's going on? What's happening to me? Like, I can't even jump to the conclusion that I'm in a different universe, because that'd be crazy. He has to actually see some evidence of it at some point. Which, he sees some of the work that Doppel Jason had done in his house, and that's when it clicks for him, and it actually ties into an experiment that he did on a much smaller scale earlier in his career, and it lets him put two and two together and start theorizing down the right path. And once it gets to that point, I was a little more interested. I was a little bit more interested in just, like, okay, we're openly talking about it, and because up until this point, he just thinks the world's changed around him, and at least once we get to this part of the episode, he's now talking in the, oh no, I've came from my world into this world, and Doppel Jason has went from this one into where my life is supposed to be. And as soon as that change happened, the way he was talking about it to Doppel Daniela, who's become like his friend and sidekick in this universe, she started, like, pondering the what ifs. And obviously thematically, her whole art show is about the path not taken, so it all ties into that quite a bit. And, like, she starts asking questions about their life. By the end of the episode, she's saying, hey, what's her life like together? At first it's quite awkward because the subject of them having a son's quite touchy, because in this world she got pregnant and seemingly had an abortion, so it's a bit of a sore point in their past. It's a bit of a troubled part of their history. But by the end, like, she's hearing this and she's surprised to find out that she gave up art in the other world to be, more of a, not a full-time mother, but, like, they both made sacrifices for the family life they have. And she starts asking questions, and it gets to the point where she asks about sex and then leans in for a kiss, and there's a bit of chemistry. And it's kind of interesting, I suppose, in some ways, that the Daniela in the second universe, Doppel Daniela, is feeling attraction now to Jason. The idea that this is the Jason that she probably wanted all those years, that abandoned her because he was too obsessed with his work or something. And she's surprised to learn that she gave up art, but maybe the idea is that, okay, it's surprising to her here because Jason never made any kind of big commitment to her. But the idea being that, hey, maybe if she was given the choice again, or she did go down that path, she didn't regret it. And, we see her, like, she asks at one point if, like, Daniela's happy, like, is the other me happy? And he says yes, and I thought that was a bit bold of him. I thought, well, like, I think she's happy. I hope she's happy. But he's very sure about it. And I think it's playing out in both universes in some sense, that there's almost more chemistry between Doppel Jason and Daniela, almost like married Daniela is, like, feeling this, like, fire from him when he goes in for an extra passionate kiss here or there, when he does little extra things. There's also moments where it feels like he's acting out a character, like when he gives his son some advice about asking a girl out, and she's like, what the hell, that sounds cynical. But for the most part, there is these little moments where it feels like she is kind of, like, feeling something, because he's showing this, what seems from her perspective, is this new fire, this new interest. But there's maybe something to be said of the other version that's a bit of a stranger is more exciting and more attractive, even if she doesn't know that's what's happening. But in Universe 2, right, Doppel Daniela does know that this is not supposedly her if she believes him, right? Maybe she still thinks he's crazy, but she does seem to at least be pondering the idea and chooses to kiss Jason. And interestingly, Jason kind of, like, is reciprocating, which, it's like, oh, Jason's about to, do the thing that I said Doppel Jason was guilty of at the end of last episode. Well, actually, That's not true. It's not the same thing. It's similar, but one of the things I said about Doppel Jason having sex with Danielle at the end of last episode is that Daniela does not know this is not actually her Jason, so therefore it is basically a form of assault because it's not who she thinks it is, right? Obviously, it's a situation that can't actually exist in reality, but effectively, let's say someone was wearing a mask and someone thought it was their partner, but it wasn't. Afterwards, you pull the mask off and, aha, you just had sex with someone else. Like, obviously, that would be assault. That's effectively what happened. It's different here, of course, because both of these characters, while Jason arguably is doing a bad thing because he's effectively cheating on his Daniela, both of the adults in the interaction are, choosing to do it with the best of knowledge they have of who each other are. They're making a consensual decision here. So the big thing about this episode is that I'd heard people say episode 2 was better. I saw that sentiment on the internet, and particularly the ending of episode 2 was good. The end of episode 2 made it exciting for going forward. And even knowing that, I never even had an idea of what it could be when I was watching the episode, even when we were minutes from the ending, right? Because towards the ending is when they're kissing, the Doppel, Daniela, and Jason, and I was thinking, oh, is this the end scene? Like, what's going to happen here that makes it exciting? Is there something weird going to happen if they try and have sex? Like, is there some sort of sci-fi thing going to pop out? And the actual ending, like, I can see why, it's a big cliffhanger, and it is a bit of shock value, but it's not adding space to the sci-fi part of the show. It's adding some intrigue into the company that Doppel Jason comes from, like how severe they're willing to do things. Do they have an idea that this Jason is not their Jason, and now they have to contain it? They see him as a dangerous entity that they have to contain. Is he going to be a prisoner now? Whatever. But yeah, the ending is that, the security woman that's been hunting him all episode shows up and, seemingly almost for no reason shoots Doppel Daniela in the head. So Doppel Daniela is dead at the end of this episode, which obviously from a TV show perspective, it's, it means something, but it's also like, oh, we're not actually getting rid of Jennifer Connelly because she's still got the other version of the character to play. So, we don't actually lose the actor in this case, but it's, yeah, like I say, it sells the severity and like how dangerous this company and how they do things is. I'm curious to see like how much they know about what Doppel Jason was doing with his tech, because obviously they said welcome back at the end of the last episode, but did he go where they thought he went? Did they fully understand that they were traveling to other universes, or did they just think they were sending him? I don't know. There's questions to be answered with that for sure. I will say, like, I don't feel as hyped up by this ending, and maybe it's just because of expectations, because people were saying it was a good ending and it got them excited. I guess I was expecting this ending to add something to the premise, like to give me something about the sci-fi concept or something about the, maybe like when the door knocked, right, and they're going towards the door and it's all suspenseful. I was thinking, oh, it's going to be another Jason. It's going to be a third Jason or something like that. It's going to be something that kind of shakes it all up and makes us then question further where we're going with all this. And instead, this was fine. It added some intrigue to like what's going on and maybe the danger that Jason's in with the people around him. And on some level, I always expect him to go back to the company because, well, the only way he's going to get home is to use their device. And seemingly Doppel Jason thinks this is a possibility because he buys a camera to monitor the device on the first Earth, right, on the first world. He gets a camera, he's got his big cube thing that he goes into to travel, and he's got like a live feed on his phone just so he can watch it. He's clearly worried that the original Jason is going to come back and try and reclaim his life. He's concerned about that. And I think it makes sense, especially since like this isn't a completely different Jason who, is a fry cook. This is a Jason who did start off in the same field, who did start this path of theorizing about this type of physics and quantum mechanics. He could theoretically, with the help of the company, if they want to help him, the other people he was working with, maybe figure out how to come back. And if that happens, what then? There's potential there for sure. But Yeah, I mean, outside of the main Jason stuff, where I did admittedly feel a little bit frustrated with the first half or so of the episode with him just trying to figure out where he was, just because we already know he's in another universe. So, like I said, we spend so much time waiting for the show to or the character to catch up to where we, the audience, are, and I didn't find that particularly compelling. It's possible to make that compelling because the way the people around him react to him could be exciting in its own right. But I don't know if I don't think I really found like his interactions with Doppel Daniela or Doppel Ryan to be particularly interesting enough to carry the intrigue, to carry like my excitement for the episode. I still found myself just waiting to get to the point where he's actually thinking about the right things and he's talking about what's actually happened, and then we can sort of deal with like going from there. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the relationship with Doppel Daniela was starting to get interesting. This idea that she's attracted to him, this version of Jason, and them becoming allies is kind of a cool idea. Obviously, it can't go anywhere now because she's dead. That said, though, if I was right last time about going to lots of other Jasons and other worlds, we're probably going to see other versions of Daniela, and maybe we'll play with some more complex things with that. Elsewhere in the episode, we see Doppel Jason sort of try to fit into the original world. I mentioned giving the son advice, and he's looking at photos. He's trying to teach a class. He makes a kind of a passionate speech about them not paying attention. We saw Jason in the first episode not really try and fight the fact that the class was apathetic, that they weren't paying attention, they were looking at their phones. There's literally a student in this episode who is playing a video game on a laptop. Like, so it's not even just like a phone game. He's playing like a racing game on his laptop with headphones in the lecture theater. But yeah, Doppel Jason gets a bit more into it, and so the idea that he actually might be a better teacher because he's had more experience not being a teacher, bizarrely. He's not lost the passion for it at the very least. He wants to mold the young minds and give them a chance at greatness, and tries to rev them up. What else does he do? Because he has lots of little things. We see him go to his little storage area and put some stuff away. Obviously, he gets the camera for the thing. Was there anything else like particularly interesting that he did? We see him looking around the house at the start of the episode. He's annoyed that he can't find the coffee because they keep it in a different place. In some ways, his stuff is a bit more interesting, at least in these first two episodes, just because he's not frustrating to watch, right? Compared to the OG Jason, who's in the Doppel universe, who doesn't know where he is and he's trying to figure it out. And I'm frustrated because I'm like, can we get to the point so you can start talking about what's going on? Doppel Jason does know where he is. He's a character that understands. So it's actually more interesting watching him like go through the process of trying to fit in and not like reveal that he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Or not reveal that he doesn't know a memory, or he doesn't know something about his son, or because he's late to class to teach because he doesn't know where the room is. But that's how it seemed when he came in anyway. Just these little things of him problem solving, and I think the reason why that's more satisfying, even though it's not that amazing, but it does, and there's not that much of it. But those scenes weren't frustrating because we understand the situation he's in and what the potential sort of pitfalls that he could encounter, and he understands what situation he's in and what he's trying to accomplish. So we can sort of be there through his thought process as we kind of get through that part of the story. We can understand what he's doing, or if we don't understand it immediately, it'll click. We'll understand by the end of the scene, or like by the time we get to the sort of the finish point of it, we'll understand, okay, this is why he's doing this. This is what he's trying to accomplish, and this is, we understand what he's doing. And we always understand what original Jason's doing, but he doesn't really understand what he's doing for a lot of the episode. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the thing I didn't mention is that OG Jason and Doppel Daniela, quote unquote, break into his house. Not really, because it's his house, as he points out, but they trick Alice Braga's character, Amanda, by telling her on the phone that he's going into a mental hospital. So she leaves to go to the mental hospital, and they go in, snip around, and this is how they find the work that lets him deduce that, oh, this is what's maybe actually happening. And I think because of that, the last like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the episode were by far the most I was into it, just because it finally felt like we were really having the characters talk about what was going on in a real way, and I could get into it a bit more. So I'll watch episode 3. I think I'm curious enough to check out episode 3. The fact that it's weekly does help a lot, because it's not that much of a commitment to do one per week. But I'll check out episode 3 and see how I'm feeling with that, and see like how it progresses now that we've got the main character where he understands the predicament he's in, and we can maybe explore like how dangerous this company is and the fact that they just murdered someone and he had to watch someone that looked like his wife die, right? Which is only going to further fuel the idea that he wants to get back home and get to his wife and family. Also, I like the idea that there's the indent of his wedding ring in his finger, and it would have been interesting for him to show that, maybe to try and prove that he usually wears a wedding ring early on. But I do like the little character touch that he puts a rubber band on his finger because he doesn't want to lose that, indent. Because he even says that's the only proof that he has that he's telling the truth. Now, it's not actually going to be proof to anyone else because, he's wearing a rubber band there now. They're just going to say, oh, the rubber band caused that. That doesn't mean anything. But it's not really for proof to everyone else. It's proof for himself. He knows that that indent was there as soon as he came here. He knows that his wedding ring was there, and he just wants to preserve it for himself. It's a reminder for him that there was one thing for him that fundamentally proved that there was truth to what his memories are. So, I like that detail. I like that character, a lot of detail. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on episode 2. I'm not in love with it by any means. It's got potential. I think it's funny that I'm conflicted on it because I felt very conflicted on Constellation. I think this show feels less messy than Constellation. This feels like it's a little bit more streamlined, at least so far. But alternatively, sometimes the tedious, getting to the point where the audience already understands something, can make certain scenes a little bit boring, effectively. But yeah, I'll check out episode 3. I'll see how I'm feeling. But that's my thoughts on episode 2. So let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments if you've watched it. I'll see you guys next time. Keep watching TV. Of course, you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help out by hitting the like button or whatever. But thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?